How is everything?
Okay, I guess it's okay.
Yeah? Tell me. These are interesting times.
Yeah, yeah, it's really hard to adjust to all this, and but we're just making do.
My guess is at some point, if when we do adjust to all this, we might actually have trouble adjusting back to kind of
Yeah,
the hectic, busy life.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, there's plenty of positive things to look at through this.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. The law of unintended consequences means that there's things that you can't predict that end up sometimes positive, sometimes negative, but they come from regardless of the event. They come from, especially the more extreme the event, the more extreme the counterweights that come out to balance the effects.
Right. Yeah.
It's that old Steinbeck quote, is it the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry?
Yes.
You can do everything if possibly within your control, try to predict or to plan what's to come, but inevitably
Yeah.
you just won't
Yeah.
be able to. And this isn't even being planned by man. This is just the byproduct of things beyond man's control. So
Yeah. It's interesting.
even more dramatic. So I guess just before we get going, I'll share. I've had a chance to look at your chart and your son's chart and your husband's chart. It's a lot. It's a lot of charts for one session. It's usually there's more than enough information in a single chart. So to have three of them will be a bit of a juggling act, but we can certainly do our best. And
Okay.
then, of course, I'm familiar a bit with your situation, but I would appreciate you sharing with me more the intention behind the discussion today. And then otherwise, I'm entirely in your service to help however I can.
Yeah. I told you that my mother was an astrologer. She's passed away, and I used to just rely on her for a lot of things, just for
Sure.
information and advice. And she was really good at it. I just miss her horribly. But, she passed away in 16, so I haven't really been able to be in touch with anything for
For
the
some
4
time.
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just feel like if I have a big picture of what my son was going through, I could get over this
Yeah.
tragedy.
Well, so and it is bizarre. You'll have to give me a little more of the detail. And incidentally, I have a screen on my left and a screen on my right. So if you ever see my eyes divert from our discussion, it's only because I'm trying to bring in as
Yeah.
much information as I can to help support you and support me. Um, so along those lines, because it's not entirely clear to me, because for starters, his chart doesn't show heaviness in the traditional sense. Like it doesn't show, like for example, when I look at Elisa's son's chart, it shows a phenomenally heavy, distorted incarnation, which brought forth a great deal of challenge that maybe had bit off more than it could chew, so to speak, like brought in too much adversity, and it ended up leading to a tremendous amount of suffering within the physical realm right from the beginning. The emotional mental body within her son's chart was just very heavy.
Yeah.
And I don't see that with your son off the bat. It doesn't,
Wow.
I don't see that level of, of adversity, not in the traditional sense, because it doesn't, you look to see the aspects and you look to see mostly squares and oppositions, which show disharmonious qualities. And the more severe, the more pronounced those are, it speaks to the less harmonized we are with ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, so somebody's outside worlds can be terribly challenging. Like somebody could be in war, for example, but that's their outside world. If they have inner calm and peace, they would still be affected, but less so. They'd be able to maintain their journey, if you will. They'd be able to maintain kind of their inner self. If
Yeah,
somebody's
I understand
Yeah,
that.
because if
I
somebody's
do get that.
if somebody's inner self is disrupted, then it almost doesn't matter what's going on around them.
Yeah.
They're going to be so severely affected by it that. And so when I looked at Elisa's son's chart, it was all her whole inner self. His whole inner self was purely conflicted,
Wow.
and
And
so
Alex didn't have that.
not nearly to the extent. Not, I wouldn't look at that chart and say, oh, especially when he was young, I wouldn't say, oh, this is going to potentially lead to suicide. It didn't show that kind of disturbance.
Wow.
I mean,
Huh.
maybe,
I mean, I even though I've had all this background in astrology, I really don't even know how to read a chart at all. But I just notice his is bottom heavy, like there's nothing on the top.
which just means a more introspective journey.
Oh. Okay.
So if there's positioning on the top, that means your learning and your interaction carries you outwardly, which means like for example, your chart has most of it. A lot of it is you have a lot of family energy, and you have your emotional core sitting in the home, and you have a few other placements, but a lot of your energy is interacting with the world. And you have both 10th and 11th house energy, which means that your career and your social life and your ambition is going to carry you outward.
Mm, okay.
Right? When somebody has a lot of, it's actually the chart is reversed because of the way the sun rises in the east, and so we have to turn it around. But when somebody has what's known as southern hemisphere placements, northern hemisphere placements, which are the placements on the bottom, that means that they're going to spend a lot more time in an introspective. The breadth of their learning is going to be whatever they kind of experience outwardly is really just to help them come to an understanding of self inwardly.
Mm,
And over time, because I'm like your son, I have most of my placements down at the bottom. Over time, they become more and more individualized, more often more private, but often more introspective.
yeah. He was very much to himself.
And that would have been his comfort zone. Is more. Sometimes they gravitate to like a lot of literature. They consume media content and such. But whatever it is, they do it so that they can be oftentimes with self. It doesn't mean that they don't have a vibrant social life or desire family connections and so on and so forth. It just means that there's a lot of contemplation in that sort of configuration.
Yeah, I feel kind of, I don't know if guilt is the right word, but maybe I did the wrong thing sending him far away to college. He wasn't close to home. And I do feel like he was a sensitive person. Maybe, I don't know, was that a bad choice or?
Well, so I'm gonna try to support you as a spiritualist. And so far as to say that there are no bad choices, like there's no bad events. There's only the identity that the human mind wants to assign to it.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so if you and Alex had decided that it was smart to go off to college, then that was a decision that was made with the wisdom or the consciousness that was available at that time. And so then
Yeah.
that was the right choice.
Okay.
Right? Like the
Mm.
want to make sure that you don't carry the heaviness around any of the past with the pretense that a different set of choices would have led to a different outcome.
Mhm.
I want to be in support for you, and in doing so, I want to shift you into a state of acceptance and not one of regret in the traditional sense,
Yeah. Okay.
right? So, like your love for Alex and your desire to be the mother that you always wanted to be, if it brought you guys to a point where he said, "Should we got into this school? Does this make sense?" and he was in an agreement with it, like he was an adult, and you were an adult, and you guys decided that that made sense, then that made sense. And if he got there and he was miserable, you wouldn't have said you're not allowed to come home.
Yeah, that's right. But I don't know. He might have felt like he was obligated to stay there because we were paying for everything.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could have paid for something else to have brought him somewhere else if that's what he desired.
Yeah.
There's how many thousands of schools are there in the country?
Yeah.
And where do you live now?
Texas. And
So
he
if
went to
you,
school in New Mexico.
which isn't like it's not that. I mean, it's far away, but it's not so far away. And if he wanted to come back to Texas and go to school more locally, he could have done that too.
Yeah.
Let's see. So tell me a little bit of give me a sense of the energy growing up, and then give me a sense of the energy that enveloped as he got closer to going off to school.
So, in my viewpoint, he had a great childhood. I mean, I tried to. My ambition was to expose him to as much as possible so that he could choose things he liked. Like, we did the Boy Scouts and all the team sports, and we did robotics classes, and he was always so open to doing everything. But he did spend a lot of time during high school in his room on his computer.
Yeah, well, that's the introspective part. That's the private part. But
Yeah.
okay, but in an unhealthy capacity, did you feel like it was too unbalanced?
Yeah, there was one point when he was 15 where he had a very impulsive, out of character for him incident where he left the house in the middle of the night, and I got a call from the police station that he was down there at 3 a.m. and I needed to go pick him up. He had taken my car,
How old was he?
15, so he had a permit and that's it. He wasn't supposed to be driving, especially at night alone. And he told me he just got so angry that he felt like he had become part of the computer world, like he didn't have a personality anymore. And he threw his computer out the window. The next day, he told me he felt silly and then we went back and got it. But he like just completely flipped out like that.
Okay, so let's just be clear here. So I had asked you before, I mean, this, you said this was out of character. You didn't have any indication that there was something else going on.
Well, yeah, that was just one thing. But then after that, he went back to normal. So this,
so, so
incident happened.
all right, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
So the suicide was 5 years after this incident, and I thought, I didn't think there was anything wrong.
So, Alex has Chiron in his first house. So Chiron is the wound that never quite heals. The first house is the self, the identity, the ego. Chiron in the first house can be a heaviness that weighs on the individual, but it's almost always being triggered or provoked by traumas, some form of abuse or something that the individual usually early in life can't process that weighs on their self-esteem and personal development. Does
Hmm.
any of that resonate at all?
Wow. I know that his father was not around very much and didn't support him with anything really, and
But you
he
were
had.
there. It's that
I
that's not,
was.
it can't be the absence of a person. It has to be some event or something that provoked a low self-esteem where he felt he wasn't attractive, or he felt like there was a degree of shame or something that he wasn't comfortable admitting to because he felt that as if it was his fault that something heavy had happened to him. Like a real deep-seated trauma of sorts to trigger the Chiron effects, which leads him with a self-esteem that prevents him from really coming into his own personality.
Well, I think he took it hard when we had his sister. He was 6 at the time, and I think maybe he felt like he wasn't important.
Trying to piece this together for you. I don't think that's adding another child to the family is not typically what I'm talking about. So, I mean, he had one episode at 15 where he winds up kind of rejecting his computer and taking the car. How did he wind up at the police station?
Well, they picked him up. I think he was sitting on the side of the road somewhere, and then they stopped. I don't really know exactly what happened, but they picked him up and took him to the station.
And do you talk to him about it?
Yeah, he was not very talkative toward me. I almost got the feeling like I was bothering him if I tried to pry too much.
Because we don't have the insight into know exactly what was happening. If this Chiron placement was triggered, if there was a true wound of self, which would have been his self-esteem and his sense of self, then it is possible that when his environment, his comfort zone was disrupted and he found himself away at school without the familiarity and the support network, that could have led to a bad consequence. But it's not going off to school that would be culprit for a suicide. It's some series of events or a singular traumatic event that's unresolved that weighs on the individual that then, without the curbs to keep it in check, ends up manifesting badly.
Well, his birth was horrible, and he spent almost 3 months in the hospital away. Like I would go over and hold him for an hour a day, but I wonder if that was traumatic, not having us around.
That's a different placement in the chart. that kind of a birth trauma, which is usually Pluto somewhere in the 12th house, speaks of a difficult or premature birth. Um, when did your husband leave the house?
He's really the whole time Alex was on Earth was not around much at all.
Does Alex have a relationship with him?
Yeah,
And
but
how was that relationship? Two
yeah,
Capricorns.
yeah, it was really the only relationship they had was when we were all together. Like he didn't have a separate relationship with his dad. His dad never even called him. He would just come home. His dad would come home on the weekends and we would just do stuff together. And then he'd go off to work for a couple weeks. And I don't, so Alex didn't really feel like he could call him for help or advice or anything like that.
Any other siblings?
Yes, there's two younger ones.
He has a sister?
Yes,
How was their relationship? Oh,
they fought. And then the younger one is 10 years younger than him. I think he was just annoyed by the younger one.
uh, they're- they're- well, did he work? Did he have some spending money?
Yeah, he had his money. He had allowance money, and he also did tutoring, and he
Because
rarely spent anything. He
yeah,
was
this is a very financially sensitive chart. It's a very
well,
strong awareness of money matters.
yeah, he didn't spend any money, and his dad is like that too. Like he's always,
Capricorns are oriented around the safety and security from wealth accumulation. And
yeah,
and he has his Capricornian. I'm feeling so much heaviness in this environment, darling. Did he have anybody he could talk to? Did he truly have anybody he could talk to?
not really. No, he had a couple friends in high school, but
Yeah,
I don't.
that's what was missing. There's much more here than you're aware of. I don't know who he was communicating with online. He was seeking some type of community. He felt too there's too much. He's too alone in this chart. It's not that he has that wound. It doesn't. I don't know if that wound how that wound would have been triggered, but the rest of his chart here, because the connection with the siblings was volatile and at times dysfunctional. Although there was a heartfelt connection, he had to mature into it because it felt a little too confining for him if he was too young. There's a lot of financial sensitivity here. Connection with the family is neutral, it's non-existent, and there's no relationship energy, so there's no connection to girlfriend or draw into. He didn't have like a high school lover in the traditional sense, like a sweetheart.
Right. Yeah, that is true. I know he liked a girl, and he did talk to me briefly about it, but she had a boyfriend, and he acted like he was fine with that, like he was just friends with her. But
Yeah, because so so start to piece this a little bit together. He was just too alone.
gosh,
It's not like he himself wasn't the problem. He himself, without a sense of community, without attachment, without connection, was the problem.
hmm yeah, that's where I get into this. Well, if I had kept him at home, at least he would have had us with him.
Yeah, and so that's true, but you wouldn't be able to keep him at home his whole life.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like, would things have been different if different choices were made? Well, sure. But would it have been the fix that we would have needed? Doesn't sound like it.
hmm
He chose you as his mother,
Yeah.
and he chose his siblings, even if there was an age difference. He chose his father, even if he was absent.
hmm
Because your chart has heaviness, it has loss in the home. And your chart shows more a little, it's more conflict energy in your relationship space. You like being in a relationship, you like the idea of being in a relationship, and then when you're in it, you like the idea of being out of the relationship.
That's you hit that right on the head. It's like I like being married and having a relationship, but I can't stand the negative, like, dragginess of being pulled down all the time.
Well, so
Yeah, I know it's a hard balance. It's
well, you have a sun moon opposition, and it carries you between Leo and Aquarius. So your conscious mind is it likes the idea of companionship in many ways, and it seeks to be part, especially to be in some ways to be adored or to be revered. But it carries the phenomenally generous qualities as well. But your moon, your subconscious, which is your feminine, is Aquarius, which is quite independent and hates to be burdened or restricted. It's the most independent energy of the zodiac. And when I say
yeah,
independent, it doesn't mean that it can't spend time with others. It just doesn't want to be restricted or otherwise doesn't want to be told what to do, basically. And the Leo hates to be criticized. And those are sitting in perfect opposition. So it's this energy. The Leo wants to be in a relationship as long as it's not a critical one. The
yeah,
Aquarius is okay being in a relationship as long as it's never being restricted in any way. When there's a perfect opposition, your sun and your moon being your conscious and subconscious mind are, it's like a seesaw. It kind of
yeah,
oscillates.
yeah. You're absolutely right. That's how it's been.
And your moon is sitting in the fourth house, which is the home, it's the family. So when it gets triggered, it's like, so it can be wonderfully nurturing in the home, but when it's triggered by events in the home.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And then you get carried up to your 10th house. Your 10th house is career and ambition, which can actually, in some ways, it's your identity. So it calls you into that space because that's the self. That's the egotic self wants to be in that space and it wants to have the attention for its contributions.
yeah,
So it's like I said, it's just a pendulum or a seesaw that's just going back and forth between those energies.
yeah. How do I resolve that? I just
It's harmonization. You have to go to a high vibrational state for each of these placements. So the Leo has to become purely generous, but without seeking attention for its generosity. It has to take the I out of the ego, which is it's not about me anymore, but I can still see my motivations just without letting them be tainted by my own needs. So like the
yeah.
highest vibrational Leo is just generous without needing recognition.
Hmm.
A low vibrational Leo is always looking to insert itself into the equation and or looking for praise for its efforts.
Yeah, I feel like my main drive is to stay out of negativity. And when my husband was around, I felt dragged into a negative energy, and it was just,
You can't marry an earth sign, darling. You can't be with
uh,
you can't be with an earth sign is because there's a precision to an earth sign and there's a lot of structure and discipline and rules. If your
yeah,
son actually would have done better with structure, discipline, and rules because his conscious and subconscious was in earth. But your subconscious is liberated and it hates the administrative part of life. It doesn't want to get caught up in the bullshit details. And then your conscious mind gets called into it loves big ideas, but it also likes it likes a little bit of drama. It has a lot of fun, but it's in a specific. When you really get into your sweet spot, it can it can be a little bit sloppy at times, but it's just because it's carefree in its disposition. It just doesn't take it so seriously. And
yeah.
so and so your first impression is in Scorpio, so that's more serious. But when people get to know you, you're very different.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So the way I'm experiencing you now, I'm experiencing the attention of the Scorpio. But
Yeah,
if you and I were to hang out a few times, I would start to feel the fun and the adventurousness of the Leo.
yeah, yeah. You're right. You're very right.
And so your energy would shift quite dramatically. And then, of course, if you were in a romantic space or in a family space, it would invoke the Aquarian energy, which is visionary, but it's always like, where do we go next? And the earth energy would be like, this is what you did last. And so if there was criticism, it would try to carry you backwards into the mistakes, whereas your
Yeah,
consciousness wants to carry you forward into what comes next.
yeah, yeah. You're right. I cannot stand going back, constantly being held back.
I know. It's,
I just, so
yeah.
I should never be in a relationship with the earth sign. That was my first getting off the rails.
Yeah, it's because you give off water energy and you have your loving natures in Pisces. So an earth sign could, if you were young and got into a romantic space, they would feel your love. They could actually feel your love. You would express your love, but the rest of you, your personality and your drive and motivation, a lot of your subconscious energy, it's all very different from Earth.
So Pisces are better.
No, so for you, the Pisces would be better for your husband. But
Oh,
you
okay.
you have your, so Venus is how we love. So you actually love through Cancer. I should not Pisces. You love through Cancer, which is to nurture, which is kind, it's sweet, but it happens to be in your spiritual house. It's kind of like the things you love most are in the spiritual vein. It's kind of interesting. And it calls you, maybe you might, do you travel? Have you gone into any travel?
Yes. I
Yeah.
used to travel all the time. Yeah.
It's a love of travel. It's a love of exploration. It's a love of spiritual pursuits and new cultures. Like that's the kind of love that it is. It's still love in a relationship space, but it's like if we were to be a composite of all these energies that, and you were married to somebody, they would experience this 5% of the time.
Oh.
The
Uh-huh.
other 95% or 90% of the time would be the Leo and the Aquarius and very different energies.
So what energies am I good with?
So if
Which
I was to pair you up romantically, I'd find you a fire sign. I'd find you an evolved Aries, or maybe a kind Sagittarius.
hmm,
They wouldn't take to you initially though, because they would feel your water energy. You'd have to get past like 3 or 4 dates, and then they would be more familiar, they're more comfortable with your true self.
interesting.
Yeah, that's so. This is where astrology is so good at starting to understand the facets of the human mind, because we have, like Freud had realized it after studying astrology, but you have the id, ego, and superego from Freudian psychotherapy, which was pointing to our subconscious, our conscious, and the projection of self. Like we
Mhm.
call it superconscious, like who you are when you first meet somebody because you're on your best behavior, like who you are at work because you want to give off a professional demeanor.
Right.
And all
Oh,
that
wow.
he's doing is he's looking at your moon, your sun, and your rising sign.
Yeah.
He took that from classic astrology. So your moon is in air. Your subconscious is in air, which is the thinking mind. Your conscious is your ego. It's your sun sign. That's in Leo, and it's happy in Leo. And then your rising, which is your projection, just barely, it's sitting in Scorpio. It's
Which is
right on
Alex,
it's right on the cusp of Libra and Scorpio.
and Alex's was there too, right?
So that's the only similarity that you guys really share. That's the only similarity, which would have been a part of his being, is that he also had a rising in Scorpio, but his sun sign is in Capricorn. The way he loves was in Capricorn. His subconscious was sitting in Taurus, which is the sister sign to the Capricorn. So right off the bat, there's a phenomenal amount of Earth in his chart.
So what did he need
He
to
needed
be happy?
he needed some. So for a Capricorn, he needed financial security.
Yeah.
So the Capricorn and the Moon in Taurus wants to make sure that everything's under control. It needs to have tremendous consistency, and it needs to feel as if it has like agency, like it can control its atmosphere, its environment. Right?
Mhm.
Destabilizing is a deep stabilized energy here, which is the variability is harder for this type of configuration. But then from a romantic or an interpersonal standpoint, it generally needs that, especially with all this introspective energy, it needs somebody that can dive into its intellect and start to go really, really deep into their space and figure out exactly where they are, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, but create an atmosphere of intellectual acceptance, as opposed to your chart might carry a little bit more judgment or even projection where you throw out a lot of ideas of what he could do differently,
Yeah.
right? Because the Aquarian subconscious on the Leo conscious mind feels that it has the answers. So it's
Yeah. And that was, he would not talk to me about things. So I was always trying to get him to find stuff to be interested in. And I would throw stuff out. Oh, you want to do robotics? You want to get involved? Would you like to do tutoring? And see, I just don't know if I was.
It wouldn't have been, you wouldn't have been capable of connecting with him. Not without you learning very defined, like a defined set of techniques to allow you to communicate differently than your default.
Oh.
So your way of communicating is beautiful for you in your energy, and surround yourself with the right people, and it's synergistic, right?
I wasn't able to connect to him.
It would have been so without, like, if you and I, let's say you called me 5, 6, 7 years ago or something, and you said, okay, Allan, I'm disconnected from my son. Can you help advise me on a different style of communication?
Mm-hmm.
We would have slowly started to implement small changes, and your son would have been energetically more receptive of a different style of communication.
Wow. Okay.
But that's only because the energy that governs his conscious and subconscious mind just happens to be different from the energy that governs yours.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have kept him more distant. He might have had a better shot with his father, but his father chose to be absent.
Yeah.
And so in the light of the energy with siblings that was poor, and the age difference and such, combined with such an introspective chart, if there's nobody that he could have spoken to, it would have left him relatively isolated.
Oh. Yeah, that's horrible. A horrible feeling that he was left alone.
So it's not, but you can't be burdened. Like, I know there's a heaviness to it, but it's because there's nothing like losing a child. And so I have a lot of compassion, but there's nothing about you that could be any different than the way you are. Right? It's not about you saying, if I was different, if I'd chosen different things, if I was a different person. There's not a lot of value in trying to rehash and try to be different than you were. You were exactly who he chose you to be when he chose you as his mother.
Yeah.
So part of his journey was to overcome whatever sensation or feelings of isolation that he had, because these were the energies that he chose as part of this incarnation.
Yeah.
He knew that you were going to have an Aquarius moon and a Leo sun. He knew that because you existed before he chose to incarnate to join you.
Yeah.
And he had contracted with you before you even chose to incarnate. So I just want to make it incredibly clear, like with a lot of love and support, that you don't carry any blame or heaviness around it as if you could have been somebody different than you were.
Yeah. Wow. So, but he chose the distance with his father and all this difficulty with the siblings.
So, we generally choose, and then we hope that things unfold. So he chose what would have been a quote unquote broken family, meaning just like many of us were raised without two actively involved parents. So that he would have chosen. I don't know that he knew we could have predicted how distant his father would turn out to be. It sounds like, your ex-husband really is quite distant.
Yeah, he's very fixated on money, and it's just a real critical, like analytical. He's always looking to fix and analyze stuff.
He's a Capricorn.
Yeah.
It's a thinker's chart. It's a thinker. Your son was a thinker too.
Yeah, so he might have actually gotten along great with that kind of atmosphere.
If his father was healthy and wanted a relationship, they would have done fine. It may have been a little bit socially awkward. It might have been a little too introspective, but they would have had companionship. They would have supported each other.
Yeah. Wow. And then his sibling, the middle one is a Pisces, and then the young one is a Gemini.
So give me the what's the age difference? So the middle one was
The middle one's 15, so she was 6 years younger.
And so are these from the same father or different father?
Same father, yeah.
How long were you guys married?
30 years,
Okay.
25, something like that.
How
A
many of
long
them,
time.
how many of them were good?
Not very many. It was just, I had this overwhelming drive to just make it work no matter what. Keeping the family together. We were going to be a family. That was just, but now that I look back, it's like I probably made everybody miserable doing that.
But, I don't know, there's so much humility, and I appreciate your energy around it. You did what you could. Like there are no mistakes in this thing. Things may not unfold the way we expect them, but they're not mistakes. The, we have to resolve some of the regret that you may have. Your wound. So your son's wound was was with self. Your wound was in the family space, and your moon is there too, which means your most volatile, unpredictable energy showed up at home.
Yeah. Wow. And it was like that when I was a kid too.
There's because the wound is there. It's a lifetime placement. It would have both your volatility and well as the pain that you would have experienced. So they call it Chiron in Greek mythology was the wounded healer. It actually had a remarkable capacity to sympathize and to help and heal others in this space, but they never had the ability to heal themselves.
I see.
And so you would have had the capacity to sympathize for other families that were struggling, but this pain was always with you, and it will always, I don't want to say always, but it's designed to carry with you for life. It will
Yeah.
require a lot of work to heal this wound, is what it comes down
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
But the dynamic that existed, and you can share with me the dynamic that existed when you were growing up, it would have probably set like a parlay where one thing leads to the next. That childhood environment, when this wound and this emotional sensitivity is there, would have probably dictated the energy that you carried into the heavy energy that you carried into your family as well.
Yeah. Well, I feel like because of my childhood wounds, I appreciated children so much more.
Okay.
So I don't know. I thought I was contributing to the happiness, but I don't know. I feel like maybe I did the wrong thing by, I don't know, trying to work through all the negative stuff, like being so, I don't know, insistent, that I, instead of splitting up and trying to make it work that way where it would be happy for everybody.
Yeah. That's
I don't know.
that. I mean, that it's a fair discussion, but it comes back to the same point from earlier. Had you chosen differently, things would have been different. But
Yeah.
that recycling of the past and trying to figure out what we could have done otherwise, it doesn't really help us release those events.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, had you divorced your husband after the third child was born, would things have been better? Maybe, but maybe not.
Yeah.
Had you never married him, would things be better? Well, maybe, but maybe not. You had three children.
Yeah.
Is it one boy and one girl that you have
Two,
now?
two boys. Two.
Two.
Well, yeah, one girl, one boy now. Yeah.
Yeah. So the middle child is a girl.
Yes.
What's her name?
Katie.
Katie. And then the last child.
Jason. He's the Gemini.
You guys get along?
Yeah, he's I feel like we do, and they're super different.
They couldn't be more
Well,
different. Jason, I don't know his chart, but Gemini's a bit of a chatty Cathy usually.
yeah.
I mean, you'd enjoy the banter with Jason, and he'd be lighter in general and less likely to criticize you.
Yeah. Yeah, that part is good, but he does have this heavy thing, and I think it has to do with the modern age, all this anxiety that kids are under. He gets really overstimulated. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard of highly sensitive people. Some of their traits, one of their traits is that they get overwhelmed with processing the world, and they they have to retreat. They have to go in to
Well,
themselves.
yeah, he needs to find more balance. The Gemini has to work towards balance and harmony anyways, but he has to find balance in his everyday life so that he doesn't go into that overwhelmed state.
Yeah, because
You
he'll get
know,
really
it's
angry.
it's it's all the devices and stimulation and external the opinions and the judgment and the ideas and the conflict. He has to limit if he's sensitive in any way. Most of us have sensitivity, but if he's particularly sensitive, he needs the discipline to cut himself off from all that barrage of media and videos and opinions that are being propelled at him.
Hmm.
Very hard to do that, but
Yeah.
that's his responsibility. We all have to kind of protect ourselves to some extent.
Yeah, but he's only 10 now. What should I be?
Does
Is
he
there
have a
anything
does he have a
different?
cell phone?
Yeah, but he doesn't use it. He plays games a lot though on the computer, just like his older brother.
What kind of games?
Oh, like Minecraft and um, oh, I can't remember the name of this other one.
They are they networking games?
Yeah, one of them is, yeah.
So we have to be conscientious of who's influencing him through those games.
Hmm.
Part of it is the game itself because it's not usually kids can detach from the fiction of the game, even if it can be a little violent. It's not ideal. Some of it is actually misogynistic. Right? He's only 10, but they get into racier games as they get older, which can really push the envelope. And so we have
Yeah,
to be conscientious of the type of game that he's playing, right? But then it, this, it's not my generation, right? Like I'm in my mid 40s, and so I never had it growing up. But from what I understand, the network that gets created, and some of them get so caught up in the social aspect of these games that they're developing relationships with just names on the screen
yeah,
that
yeah.
they'll never meet.
Well, I think that's what happened with Alex too.
I think so too.
His friends were just online people, not real.
Yeah, so Alex maybe didn't develop healthy social skills, didn't have his father's kind of as a guide, if you will, or as an example, was relatively introspective in his own right, never got into a romantic interpersonal relationship, and then just went further and further into the gaming world. And that's where the story kind of becomes opaque because we don't know what was happening in the gaming world.
Yeah, I
We
don't
don't
know.
know. We just know that one night he had a complete episode, broke down, and chucked his computer out, and wound up at the police station at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, that was at 15, and then the next extreme episode was this one at 20. I mean, there
Yeah,
was
which is
no
almost
one.
like it's almost like if you were watching a movie and somebody let you watch a minute, an hour into it, and then another minute, an hour and a half into it, and you were trying to figure out what was going on in the whole movie. Like you only have those two little episodes to say something wasn't right, but you don't have all the content in between to give you the intimate awareness of what was really unfolding.
Yeah,
And if you and he weren't in communication, because naturally, and a lot of teenagers don't speak to their parents, but these energetically, these charts are quite distant. If it wasn't coming to you, sometimes family members like my sister will speak to my aunt, and then my aunt goes and tells it to my mother.
yeah,
Right?
and
And
then you
so
get it.
so my mom says, and then it goes the other way too, right? So my
Yeah,
aunt operates as the proxy, the conduit to move the
yeah,
information back and forth. Sometimes that's a support, even though it's not ideal. But if
yeah.
you guys didn't have that, and you were obviously taking you work, right? You have
Yeah, I went to part time. I had a business before he was born, and I chose to go to part time so that I could be with him.
yeah, yeah,
Because
because
my
there's ambition in this chart, so it would make sense that you would have a business. There's ambitious
yeah,
and there's community. So what would tell me what your business was?
it was pizza franchise, Domino's pizza franchises.
What's
I had,
better than feeding the world?
yeah, and I was going to school for solar engineering because I wanted to, save the energy, the planet's energy, and I ended up doing the pizza thing on the side, and that's.
The pizza.
But I loved being in business. It was very, I just really thrived there.
You'd be good at it too.
Yeah, but then I had such a hard time having Alex that I made a hard choice, that I am not, he's going to be number one. And I really felt we had a very close relationship. So that's what's so hard for me to understand. I thought he knew that. I told him those were my choices and I wanted to be with him. But maybe he just didn't get that.
So do you think that he would say that he felt a strong connection to you?
I thought so, naively. I mean,
Well,
now I feel like,
so what if he didn't leave because he didn't have a strong connection with his mother? What if he left even though he had a strong connection with his mother?
yeah,
Right? Like we can hold two concepts concurrently and we can see them both as true.
yeah,
Did Alex choose to leave? Yes. Did he have a wonderful relationship for his mother? Yes. He may not have been sharing with her everything that was going on in his world, but he loved her and he knew she loved him.
mm-hmm.
But something else was, of course, darling, of course. And he's in a place now where he's already spent a lot of time reflecting on it and coming to terms with it. And I'm sure he sends you soothing, healing energy whenever he feels you're in distress over his leaving.
Yeah, he does.
Because he's still with you. You can't physically feel him. You just are now left to emotionally or energetically feel him.
Yeah. Most of the time I do fine and I can function pretty normally, but I guess, did we have something that we learned from all that?
There's always learning. It's in a constant state of learning. The problem is that when it's a heavy event like what we're experiencing, we may not have the lessons here in the physical realm. So you may have to accept that you won't know all that was intended for you to learn until after you've continued on to the next realm.
Yeah, okay.
When you're back with Alex and you can say, what did I not get, or what was it that I didn't understand? And then he'll soothe you there, and he'll be full of love and apology probably for how you were affected by it. And that's when you'll have the answers. That's when you'll have clarity around it. But this vantage point doesn't offer it to us. Because to be frank, I mean, even if Alex felt terribly alone with everything that you've shared, it's still not it's not a suicide based. There's many of us feel alienated or alone and isolated at different times, even those that are most connected. I lived in New York for years. You're surrounded by millions of people and you're like, how do I feel so alone with so many people around?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think that drug though really had a lot to do with it. That Accutane drug.
So like I'm familiar with Accutane as well. Accutane is disruptive on the body. There's absolutely no doubt about it. I haven't seen the data around suicide from Accutane.
It actually says on the box, it's a black box drug, and it says right on there that that's a side effect. Suicide is a side effect.
But while you're on the medication, right?
Yeah, I think it causes psychosis.
I know, but did he take his life while he was on Accutane?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
You don't happen to remember the dose that he was on, do you? Was it a high dose?
40 milligram, I think.
Yeah. So
they wanted to put him on 60, but he said he was having so much physical pain that they put it back to 40.
Did you follow up with the doctors when it happened? Did they have any insight into it?
No, I wasn't allowed to even talk to the doctor because he had just turned 20. So I didn't have privy to any of that. I was able to get the records, though, and I know that they have this program where the patient goes online and they answer questions. Like, for instance, women have to promise to not conceive. I mean, because there's all this
I know it's
birth
particularly,
defect stuff.
yeah, I know it's a particularly hard drug. It's changing the by I don't know, that's the actual oil glands, the
Yeah, it's like getting vitamin A toxicity. It closes off all your pores,
you know, it's pretty harsh.
basically. But I just I don't get the mental aspect of it, but it does ask questions like, are you depressed? Are you suicidal? And you have to answer those questions every month before they'll give you this box of this stuff. So he checked no on everything.
So it was his choice to go on the drug then?
No, actually, his father really almost insisted that he do it. I
But
mean,
why? Because was he claiming to be depressed from his acne, or was it something else at hand?
no, he just wanted, his father was sick of looking at his huge, like, he had cystic, lumps on his face, and I was doing all the natural stuff and it wasn't working. So he was getting aggravated with me and told him about this great drug. So Alex went on it, he listened, we trusted, none of us knew about the side effects. Alex knew, but he didn't really. He told us about the joint pain he was having. It was like something I guess we suggested, and he went along with just out of pure trust for his parents.
Yeah, because I hate to think that this is a medically induced suicide as an allopathic drug reaction.
Well, I kind of feel like it is because
Well,
I,
because
I
nothing else in the chart would show me enough inner conflict for somebody to take their life.
yeah,
And now it could be that the things that we were coming up with earlier are still true, which is he didn't feel like he could really talk to anybody. Like he felt a little too isolated. So maybe as the symptoms were starting to pile up or the depressive tendencies were coming in from the medication, he
mm-hmm.
didn't have a support network that he felt comfortable enough sharing it with.
Yeah,
He felt like his parents were the ones that were pushing him onto this medication. The last
mm-hmm.
person he thought maybe he could go to was his father, for example, his parents, to talk about how he's suffering on the drug.
Yeah, or I don't know why he couldn't have even talked to me about that. I mean, he did tell me about the physical problems, and I told them to ask them to lower the dosage, which he did. He listened to me, but I didn't tell him to stop, which I probably should have
But you
suggested.
can't, I can't let you get away with the probably stuff anymore. I don't want you carrying the heaviness of the regret, darling.
Yeah,
I don't want you. I don't, we can't go back and rewrite the past.
yeah.
So you suggested that he lower the dose, and so he was on 40. Did he lower it from there?
No, he stayed on the 40. According to the medical records, he went off for a couple of weeks, but there's no explanation why.
Did he take himself off, or the doctor took him
I
off?
think he did.
So he stopped taking it on his own.
I think so, yeah. And then went back on it after a couple of weeks.
And then, so how long had he been on it when he went off to school?
5 months,
How long is he supposed to be on it?
6 months.
Oh, you're kidding
He,
me.
he was almost done. Mm.
Had he been showing the benefits then? Had his skin cleared?
Oh yeah, it worked. Yeah. But when he came home at Christmas time, the last time I saw him, he definitely had some real heaviness to his emotions. Like I could feel it. He didn't express it, but I could just feel it when I hugged him. He was just like really just like dead weight in my arms.
That this, you know, I can't. I have a friend, a close friend, who is a wonderful channeler. I can't promise you anything. I I know I'm going to ask her if we can just ask for a little bit more clarity on perhaps what may have gone wrong. I don't want to, I don't want to I don't want to get your hopes up per se, because
Yeah,
I want, ultimately, I would like you to take away from our conversation that, like, you, first off, you can't go back and rewrite the past. It's healthy to explore it, but it's really even healthier to just hold on to the love that you had for him and know that in that moment, with the information available to you, you did the absolute best that you could.
hmm,
Right. So it's not fair to look at a suicide and then say, well, what could I have done differently in the 20 years leading up to it?
yeah,
Right? Because you didn't
yeah,
know of the suicide as you were raising your son, and you had two other kids to raise, and you had a difficult family environment to contend with.
yeah,
Nobody would have foreseen an otherwise stable, introspective child as potentially a suicide candidate.
yeah. Yeah, he did seem like a stable child. That's the thing.
He has his moon in Taurus. It's the most stable subconscious of the zodiac.
Yeah,
It's unruffled by life.
yeah, he seemed like confident, and
It,
it was
it,
just unbelievable.
it gets criticized for being too stable, like almost like it's boring.
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm okay
kidding.
with that.
But
Yeah,
like, but in a good way. Like, it doesn't, like, the bombs are dropping all around and he's just like, all right, we'll get through it. But
yeah.
so
So see, he had all that
which is
still.
why I said it when I saw the chart. There's nothing in here that says inner conflict and destabilizing energy. There's Chiron in the first, which is, am I good enough? Am I attractive? Am I attractive enough?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
that's Chiron the first. Does the world see me as beautiful, or do I see my physical flaws?
yeah,
Right. And it's sitting in Scorpio, so it's like my flaws, my mistakes, my blemishes, my inferiorities, my weaknesses. Right.
yeah,
But that's just one placement. The rest of his chart has struggles, like we all have struggles, but it doesn't have, I'm taking my life struggles. And,
yeah,
and so if you take somebody who's relatively content, stable, settled, and at peace, with he's an American adolescent making his way through life, and then you add medication that's causing so much dramatic of variation and disruption in his physical, emotional, and mental well-being, and you have him on it for 5 months to the point where he had to take himself off for a period because he was suffering so badly.
yeah. But hundreds of thousands of kids take that drug. I just feel like maybe he had something.
But a lot of them do have side effects.
Yeah,
And I don't know that this is why he went to suicide, but it may have been another element in the equation.
hmm, yeah,
Let me,
yeah,
I mean, if I need your permission, of course, Gerri, but if you'd like, the next I speak with this channel, I can try. Sometimes everything comes through clearly, sometimes it really doesn't. But I can try and just see if and I'll follow up with you with a
yeah,
little
yeah,
message. But
yeah,
I'll just see, because if she's able to make contact, um, then it may bring in a little bit of greater clarity as to what really unfolded that precipitated his departure.
yeah. Okay.
And it might just be that this was part of that. I don't see it, and because the chart's not, and I'm just I'm just the astrologer, but I'm not a perfect. I'm my skill is obviously not infallible. So if there's something that I'm not seeing here,
Can you also see, since I still have a relationship with his father because of the other two kids, something just for me to make our life better? Just how to get along with him better.
oh, so you're married to an older Capricorn.
Yeah, and of course we still, have two children to raise, even though we're not living together right now at the moment.
Yeah, but you both share a strong attachment to family. I mean,
Yeah.
family shows prominently in his chart as well.
Wow. Okay.
He feels restricted by family, but he also feels his identity, and even if he can't express it because he can't access his feelings.
What's really strange is he has his own business the way I did before we got married. It's almost like we flipped roles.
Okay.
So now he's very much into his his own business, and it almost defines him. Like he places more importance on that than he does our family, it seems.
Well, he's, what is he, 61? He's going to be 60. Yeah, he's
Yeah, 61.
61 will be 60. Yeah. I mean, you're not young.
Yeah. But I just, after 25 years with this man, I don't know what the secret is to having a good relationship.
Well, his conscious and subconscious sit in Capricorn, which is a reinforcement of its practical energy. It's seeking, it's generally around integrity. It's usually around structure and discipline. It can be oriented around, um, once again, it's the feelings of being in control and but always moving forward. Like the Capricorn is the mountain goat, that the perennial mountain goat that's always just trying to climb forward. His business may give him that sensation that he's evolving, that he's moving. He's,
Yeah.
it's like adding greater purpose. And I mean, if you ask me how to get along with this type of chart, how is he healthy?
Yeah, fairly healthy. Yeah.
So then I think my guess is when you bring practical matters with relation to the kids, how old are Katie and Jason now?
15 and 10.
Yeah, because they're young enough that they still need his attention.
Yeah.
So when you bring practical matters to his space around the two kids, how does he respond?
Oh, he's fine. We
He's
can talk
fine.
practical. Yeah.
Yeah, the practice. I mean, you're no longer married.
Well, yeah, we're married, but we're not living in the
Yeah.
same household. The way my mother used to tell me back in her days, that the way I perceive him is he's like always like a dark cloud over my head. Like he's always raining. And I'm always like trying to get out of that. I don't want to be in that environment. So that's what it's been all about. Like he's always what do you call it?
The Debbie Downer. He's the
Yeah, the Debbie Downer of the part. Like I want to have a nice vacation and do stuff together, and he'll come up with the most critical things you could find, but it's how to ruin the fun. And it's just a hard. I don't know how to get through
you've got a
that.
curmudgeon Capricorn on your hands. It's like Richard Nixon. So you're going to be, the easy way to connect with him is on practical matters. It's I mean, it's really just anything that can be measured. The Capricorn's going to want to be able to take account of life. He doesn't have easy access to his feelings. So your ability to connect in his heartfelt space won't be so easy. But
Yeah.
you know what? You can express affection for a Capricorn. They might be taken off guard by it, but they'll be compassionate to the effort, to the expression. So like I don't know if you have an affectionate relationship, but just to be hugging him without verbalizing anything, but just to show affection, the Capricorn will be receptive. They won't necessarily respond in kind, but they will generally, especially if you stay at it, they'll be appreciative of the effort.
Oh, okay.
Like even with your son, if every day you just kind of like force the big hug on him.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, so it might feel like a little bit foreign for him to even receive it. He might not hug you back, but the Capricorn appreciates being hugged.
No, well, the Gemini kid loves it.
Gemini's totally different. Gemini,
Yeah.
you're going to have to navigate some of the chaos in the Gemini because they have to be able to calm the monkey mind. Their mind goes crazy, but you and the Gemini are the best match of the family of 5. You and the Gemini would be the closest.
Really? Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
So your subconscious is in Aquarius, so your sun sign is in Leo. He's just going to enjoy you. You get to be you with the Gemini.
Yeah, that's just a great feeling.
I get it. That's why you can't be you with your husband, and you really couldn't be you so much with Alex, but you can be you with a Gemini.
Wow. Okay, so Gemini is good for me.
Well, that's the psychology of astrology, which is what's so powerful, is it tells you compatibilities. It gives you a sense of chemistry and who gets along with whom.
Yeah. Yeah, even the Pisces girl is very difficult for me.
She's going to be more emotional. She's almost all feelings based. If you want to connect with Katie, you're going to have to exhibit a lot of empathy and a lot of emotion, or just to be really receptive of her emotion.
Yeah, okay.
Like
Yeah, that's
there's gonna be more drama. She's gonna feel life more. She's gonna be more affected by um, the events around her. She's gonna be
yeah, and we can
susceptible.
talk pretty well, but it seems like it's she wants to always take the opposite side of whatever I'm involved in. It's opposite for her.
I'd have to see the rest of her chart then. She
Yeah,
would have contradictory energy. The Pisces actually it likes to meld into somebody else's space. It likes to believe in things beyond their own
hmm,
views because easy to um, it's easy to convince a Pisces, but that's only about a third of her chart, and she's still only 15. She's not going to grow into the Pisces for another 10 years.
okay, okay.
Yeah, both the Gemini and the Pisces are only, even Alex, they are not yet fully matured in their sun sign.
Hmm.
It takes until the prefrontal cortex, it takes until the mid 20s for that to all come together.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do see that difficulty in that age range through college, high school and college. Those years just seem so hard.
Well, they're hard because the community is not what it once was.
Yeah,
They're hard because they spend their life on social media as opposed to closely connected to the kids in the neighborhood.
yeah, right, right.
Like it's just different from waking up, meeting up with a buddy, walking to school, playing sports afterwards, hanging out with your friends, and then coming home for dinner, sitting down together with the family, and then going out in nice weather and enjoying, an evening sun with the kids in the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Take that and now replace it with the current reality, which is on these devices, completely emotionally disconnected from random stories or events or strangers that you'll never meet, or the sensationalization just trying to get your attention, and then having no attachment to anybody in your immediate environment. It's
yeah, yeah,
it's caused and it's continued to cause a lot of problems.
yeah. Yeah, I don't even feel good about living in the world right now. It's just so
It's heavy. It's
yeah,
transitioning though. It's another conversation for another time, but there is a great deal of optimism that there's incredible change forthcoming in these years that will the whole planet is undergoing a really remarkable transition.
yeah.
We're at the inflection point now, so it feels particularly uncomfortable, but it will change. You'll
Okay.
witness it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Hope it was good speaking with you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. So you'll just let me know then what the Chandler says?
Well, yeah, so I will do my best to ask her and do my best to hope for and to encourage her to accept our request. But that's
Yeah.
me setting your expectations. But yes, if we're successful in that, then I'll reach out accordingly.
Okay.
All right. It's an amazing channel, but like anything else, it has to pick and choose where it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if this is a conversation that resonates with her, then we'll see what Alex wants to share with us, and then, or what the consciousness shares with us on behalf of Alex is usually what happens. So
Yeah.
she doesn't channel the actual deceased. She channels a higher consciousness, which is able to bring forth, can communicate with the soul of the departed.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So if that's successful, then by all means, you can always reach out. I've been I love these conversations more than anything. I just have to manage my schedule better because I'm getting a lot of requests, and
Yeah.
and
Do you think the suicide rate has gone up, or is it just because I'm more aware of it now?
no, it's gone up.
So do you have a lot of people requesting this kind of thing?
Well, so because Elisa has asked me on her show a few times, and so a
Yeah.
lot of the people that follow her have lost loved ones.
Yeah, I
But
see.
but yeah, I just think it's really hard to grow up right now, in especially in the US. I think it's really hard to be young.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to be. I don't think being young anywhere is easy. I think being young now in the US is unbelievably difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. It does seem that way.
It really is. There's temptation in the worst of ways, whether it's drugs and what have you, but there's also this complete social disconnect, and there's a lack of trust, and there's a ton of criticism from, like, we're just expecting to be more than we are. These kids don't really have an easy go at it. And it's hard to be an adolescent even when everything's perfect.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah. It's
go ahead
hard.
and throw a million medication and processed foods and all sorts of toxins in the individual's body combined with no real strong social fabric. And it's just very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
Yeah. I
hard.
do feel sorry for the kids.
No, I do too. Gerri, I wanted to mention, so this is obviously, it's your content. I always forget this. So this video belongs to you. If at
Mhm.
any point you're okay, some of the parts of the conversation might help others. So if you're okay with it, I don't want you to tell me now. You can let me know. I have a wonderful manager who wants to share these to help raise awareness and support other people on their journey.
Yeah.
So I'll, after we get off the phone, maybe not today because I've been at my desk for too long, but at some point I'll create a little drive for you, a Google Drive, and I'll end up dropping this video on there if, in case you just want to replay any of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Good.
then if
Good.
at any point you are okay with me having it, then you can just let me know. If you're okay with me having some of it, you can just let me know. And if you're not, then that's fine as well. It's your time.
Okay. And it's something that you share with other people that request readings, or
No,
what?
my channel right now, my YouTube channel has some spiritual discussions.
Oh.
And so people have been contacting me. Everybody's at different points in their life and everybody's doing their best to get through it. And so I had this idea that if they could see how other people are navigating their challenges, then it may either give them hope or ideas or just encouragement.
Yeah. I'm okay with all that.
Yeah, you don't mind?
Yeah. I don't mind.
I think it's a nice conversation. I think a lot of people have lost loved ones, and especially the main lesson for you is to try not to go back in time with any sort of regret around what was.
Yeah.
Like to catch yourself doing it because the decisions you made were from a place of love with everything that you knew to be true in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's not fair to look at it from this moment with the regret of what you should have done differently. That just puts you in a state of conflict with reality. And so like
Yeah.
that's your ultimate lesson, by the way, from this conversation.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Be more
because
in the present time.
well, that lets you heal.
Hmm.
That lets you heal and that lets you move on, which is ultimately what Alex would want anyways.
Yeah.
So you have to look at it from that reality, but that lets you move forward.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you'll just continue to hold on to what could have been, and that keeps you stuck in the past.
Yeah. And hopefully there's another dimension or timeline, or
You
however you want to look at it out there.
you have no idea what else is out there. It's amazing.
Yeah. Do you have an inkling, or do you have some information on that?
I have an inkling. I do. I do. This is a brief moment in time where we pull the veil of forgetting and of illusion over our eyes when we come here to see how well we can navigate based on all the lessons that have been learned through many lives and the lessons from the spirit realm prior to our incarnation. It's kind of like sitting at a poker table, and the only way that you can learn how to play poker really well is to not know all the other cards that have been dealt.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
to and to take it one step further is the most powerful way to learn is to you don't even realize you're at a poker table.
Yeah.
So people that have some spiritual awakening, they realize that they're at the poker table.
Yes. Yes. Right.
They still don't know what everyone else is holding, but they know that they're at a poker table. People that are completely stuck in the illusion, which is believing that all there is the physical realm, they don't realize that they're really just at a card table, that they're really just trying to navigate their way and see how skillful they are at playing this game.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of like that movie Slipstream I was telling you, where
Yeah, you
Anthony
mentioned that.
Hopkins is getting older, and he's, I guess, preparing to die. but he has all these incidents where stuff bleeds through, and I think it's past lives. They don't mention that anywhere,
Yeah.
but it's like he's remembering stuff that's happened to him, and he has to put it all together, so he'll actually see like clips of things that happened.
Yeah. And so if you wanted to do a past life regression, then there are some wonderful hypnotherapists that could drop you into a state to allow you to access those past lives.
Yeah,
For you, there's actually I don't, what part of Texas are you in?
near San Antonio.
Okay, it's a big enough city. So there are, then you can look up the Newtonian Institute, which is Michael Newton had written
Oh,
Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. And what he did, which was incredibly powerful, was when people were in a hypnotic state. You know what? I'll give you the video. You'll be able to have everything anyways.
okay, okay. I was
And,
going to try and write it down.
and so, but so what Michael knew, he was a psychiatrist in Southern California. He's passed now a few years, but for decades, he would draw people into a regress state, and he would go through various past lives. But when they died in that past life, he would ask them where they went next, and they would start to depict for him the spirit realm, the astral plane,
Yeah,
and then he would start asking, well, tell me what that's all about. And
yeah, interesting.
so if you read Journey of Souls, it's a book all about the life in between lives. And he went
Yeah,
on to form an institute and actively train hypnotherapists to be able to do regression work, so that if a client came in, you could do a past life or you could do a life between life.
yeah. I've been reading Dolores Cannon.
Yeah, this would be more for you though, to actively drop in as a subject, so that if
Oh,
you did a life between life, you could see if you and Alex had a soul contract, and anything that has unfolded as I think you're going to find out it was not part of your soul's contract to experience his suicide, but you'd be
yeah,
able to potentially go into a life between life state and see the way you chose this life. It sounds
yeah,
like you had a deeply karmic relationship with Kent, because the karmic relationship is two people always trying to change each other. And that's the
yeah,
relationship that you have with your husband. It's a non-acceptance relationship.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's a karmic relationship. Those are the heaviest sort, but they're trying to move you to a state of pure acceptance where whatever Ken is, however he acts, behaves, feels, speaks every day, is for you to go into a state of pure and utter acceptance for who he is.
hmm. I see.
Even if he doesn't reciprocate that acceptance for you.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's really hard, but that's a karmic relationship, and especially you, because his tendency towards criticism or restriction is so difficult for an Aquarius Leo Moon Sun combo.
Yeah,
So, but that's your karma. This is a whole nother conversation, darling. But it's when you start to piece it all together, your life between life, past life, hypnotherapy would give you insight into the marriage choice and the family children choice and anything else that was pre-contracted ahead of this incarnation.
hmm. Wow. Yeah, that's pretty
So
heavy.
yeah, it's really heavy. You're ready though. Like, trust me, you're
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, I
You
feel like I am ready.
oh you
I'm
would
ready
you,
for
you
some big stuff.
it would start to break down some of the pain that you're carrying as well. These kind of conversations are good, but getting into your subconscious mind or your spiritual mind would be even more powerful for you.
Yeah, yeah, I really do want to do that. I feel like I'm so ready, but I don't know how to.
So you have to find a qualified, I like the Newtonian Institute hypnotherapist would be best, and see if there's one in San Antonio, or if you might have to drive up to Austin, you
Yeah,
know,
that'd be all right. I could do
it'd
that.
be okay. But just you'll look around, and see who you can find, and then make sure they're reputable, pull as many references as you're comfortable with before you make the commitment. Because
Yeah,
a past life regression is a couple hours, and then a life between life can be like half a day, where you're literally hypnotized for 3 or 4 hours.
yeah, okay.
It's a very slow, methodical journey into spiritual intention. And
Yeah,
your spirit guides have to sign off on it. You have to be given permission to gain insight into that intention, as not to impair your free will for the rest of this incarnation.
oh, well, how would it impair it?
Because if you knew what you don't know, it might alleviate the suffering, and that suffering might be part of your journey for growth.
Oh, I've already done enough suffering. Okay, that's enough.
I get that sense. I get that sense too.
Yeah, I really do feel like I'm ready to
Let it go.
even if I have to give up my life. I mean, I'm that serious about it. Like if I had to, I'm ready.
Yeah, I don't think you have to give up your life. You've got a ways to go yet. There's more learning. You know, when you're feeling joy each day, when you return yourself to the vibrancy and the beauty that you know is within you, that's probably when you'll feel that this incarnation is completed. It'll put you into a state where you're just at peace with all that is.
Yeah.
That will be your indication that you've accomplished what you came to accomplish.
Yeah.
I'd give you a big hug if I could.
I feel it.
Your kids are ready for you.
Yeah.
Darling, go get yourself a nice bite for lunch, and I'll follow up with you if there's anything more than I can share vis-a-vis my other conversations.
Okay, and will you send me that Newtonian?
Yeah, I'll give you the video, but yeah, it's Michael Newton, the Newtonian Institute. You want a practitioner trained in the Newtonian life between life regression work. I'll email it to you.
Yeah, okay, because I'll forget. Okay.
Yeah, well, you'll have this video regardless, so it'll always be available.
Okay.
All right, darling. All right,
We'll
talk more soon.
All right.